Hey everyone, once again this is Joe from Joyful Noise Productions. Today I'm going to talk about something that I'm really not too thrilled to talk about, because in a sense it does affect me, but not in a bad way, but it does bring a negative viewpoint on who I am as a person. Not, like I said, not directly to me, but it does affect it. I'll explain, but before we go any further, do me a favor. Like this video, share it to all your friends, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, don't forget to hit the notifications button, and don't forget to comment so that we can keep this conversation rolling. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Now, as the recording of this video, today is Sunday, June 8th, around 1 p.m. I just got out of church. Normally on the weekends, where I'm trying to do this on the weekends where I don't post, I don't try to work on anything that would contribute to YouTube or social media in any way, shape, or form, because it's supposed to be the Sabbath day. But the reason I kind of have to talk about this, in a sense, it's a hot topic right now, but not for good reason. I'm a Christian. I do go to a Christian church. Also, if you look in my description, I also claim I'm also a metalhead and a Christian. To some, that may be awkward, but it's being authentic. That's how I came up. I came up to the music of Striper as a kid, and that's how I came to know Jesus, besides somebody telling me about Jesus. The topic at hand is regarding a band I saw a few weeks ago. What was that band? Newsboys. I've always had a liking for the Newsboys. Obviously, as I mentioned, I saw them actually a few weeks ago in a community or a city called Jersey Village, or a suburb of Houston. You know, they did have their new singer, which was Adam Aggie, and he pretty much transitioned pretty well into the shoes of the last lead singer, whose name was Michael Tait. Now, the drama surrounding Michael Tait is still hard to decipher. Some people say they have information. There's even some people that say that it came from a source that looks for sawdust in anybody's eye, but yet they got a big old telephone pole coming out of their eye. This is where I would say, this is how it affects me as a Christian. And in what way you would say? It affects me in this respect. The allegations, and even with some of the stories that have probably been promulgated, not just with Michael Tait, but with a lot of Christian artists. I remember that Mike Lucas of Become the Night had a 3-part series about this. Was I mad about it? No. Because I kind of knew from those stories that there was some truth behind what was going on with the Christian music scene. Now, some people probably say, well, if there's some truth about what was going on in the music scene, why was it becoming what it is? Why have these things come up the way they have? Very simple. In the documentary known as the Jesus Movement, when it came out a couple years ago, it featured all the latest stars, even some Christian artists, even some old ones like Michael Sweet, that have talked to people and that have brought a lot of things out of the negativity of the Christian contemporary music movement. A lot of them, they've seen a lot of dubious things. They've kind of had to go through a lot of stuff to try to get their music out there. Now, one thing I've learned in that music documentary is this one thing. Christianity, or Christian music, actually would outsell secular music. Yeah, it's true. Let me give you an example. Amy Grant. She's just one of the few that have what they call crossed over from Christianity into contemporary music, or into secular pop music. And believe it or not, when her album came out, or that crossover album came out, it did way better than even some secular artists that have been in the music scene for a long time, because they heard about Amy Grant, how wholesome she is at the time, and let alone her music talent and the way she was singing. However, as we all seen in years, she kind of changed her position. She's kind of flailed here back and forth. When you have the music industry, or the secular music industry, I'll say it in those terms, gets involved, they're going to change the culture as well. When secular music decided to get the secular music record labels decided to get a hold of Christian record labels, like at times I remember there was Word Music, there was Star Song, there was also Dayspring. All those small record companies started to get bought up, and the reason they were being bought up is because the conglomerates of those record companies saw that there was major profit in that. Sure, even though Christian rock had a very rocky start, some people would say, well, Stryper had the rough end of it. Yes, they did, but they weren't the originals at it. The band from that was very originally started was a band called Love Song. Then another band that followed after that was Petra. And obviously, Stryper just took it to another level, where they played in front of people who would never set foot in a church. That's why record labels usually try to toe the line. I remember when John Cooper of Skillet talked about this, where the record labels would always tell him, well, if you just dumb down the lyrics and just say God, we'll be good. But don't talk about Jesus, or don't spread, don't put your message in part of the music. In so many words, John told him, hey, go pound sand or go kick rocks, I'm still going to do it. That's why Skillet is known, but they're not big. And that's where I tip my hat off to John Cooper on that. Same thing with Michael Sweet. Same thing even with Barren Cross at one time, and Petra. All those bands, they had an opportunity to cross over and to make a bigger influence. But that prize would have came at a cost. It would have caused them to compromise who they are and not allow them to be who they are. Me, I'm doing the Stryper thing, which is to evangelize and to share my message of hope in Jesus Christ through my music. When you go back to my first original album, of my Lionheart CD, I'll kind of leave the link in the description. When you go to Lionheart Music, you're going to see that those words are kind of geared to put Jesus Christ in the forefront, to put salvation in the forefront, or what we would call being born again. The reason why is because I want people to know what I've come to know. I want them to experience the joy and experience the life that this world cannot offer. I've seen a lot of videos about the Michael Tait situation, but one kind of stood out. Obviously, I watched this one guy, his name is Bad Brad, and he said one thing that made it clear. Sometimes some of these artists, even secular artists, are selling what they themselves are not buying. Now, in regards to Michael's Tait, could that have been the case? I don't know. I'll just say this, is that those are allegations. And allegations that were stirred up by somebody who broke the story, who had a lot of what we call in the church scene, a lot of church butthurt. Sure, I had my share of church butthurt. There's friends that I've known for years in the church, and I've served with in the church, that have even some of them have even attended some of my shows to support me, stabbed me in the back at the last minute. Why? Because it put their name on it. And you're probably thinking, Is Christianity that bad? No. It's not that bad. This is the crux of what people miss about Christianity. The Bible says in Romans chapter 3, verse 10, goes something like this. There's not one righteous, no, not one. Or which was an interpretation that came in the Psalms, in Psalm 14, where it said not one does good. The reason is we're all human. We have a thing called a sin nature. It's prone to disobedience. Let me give you a quick example. You have a baby. Certain things are cute when they're growing up, but there's times you have to check that. Is it easy for always to get a child to be gracious, to be grateful when they're given something? When it comes to my granddaughter and my sons, when they were growing up, I always had to tell them, what do you say? See, that's how, in a sense, sin nature is. It's things that work against common sense or that works against good. And we have inherited that sinful nature through as a lot of people would say, through the fall of Adam. When you hear about stories like this, a lot of times some people are letting some things loose in their life that they shouldn't be letting loose. Me, I'm a human. I'm not throwing stones at a glass house. My wife will tell you I'm not perfect. Yeah, I do get it. My wife will tell you he gets angry, he gets frustrated at times. There's times he hurts. That's just how it is. But my wife will tell you, Joe is for real. He loves the Lord. He loves Jesus with all his heart. And every day, I bow down in prayer before my God, and I always tell him, God, I'm sorry for acting a fool, for being foolish. I'm sorry I got mad at my wife. I'm sorry, Lord, I lost my temper earlier on something. Not with my wife, but maybe a driver cut me off and gave me the one finger salute. Those are things that the nature has to deal with. You're probably thinking, well, being a Christian ain't no better than being a regular human being. No, don't get that twisted. There is one thing that is very important, and this something is not talked about in churches, and that is a thing known as accountability. Accountability means somebody holds you to a fire. That means somebody's involved in your life to make sure you stay on the straight and narrow. Like they say about a chain, it's as strong as its weakest link. The chain breaks if that one link breaks. And when you have all these chains chained together, it keeps everybody together. Now, can that chain be fixed? Yes, it can. But again, it all comes down to this one thing of accountability. I personally have a relationship with my pastor. I love my pastor, and I let him know of things that are exciting going on in my life, but I also let him know of the things that are not so great. The reason why I want to let him know these things is so he can pray for me. So he can call me up, say, hey, brother, how you doing? I've always had good, solid relationships with my pastors. Every pastor I've had, I've always had a good, solid relationship with them. And then, sorry, I'm thinking about a dear friend of mine who was my pastor for a couple of years ago, who went home to be with the Lord. It hurts when I think about him, especially at the time when I'm doing this. He died around this time 2 years ago. When you have somebody who keeps in touch with you, call you, hey brother, how's everything? Hey brother, can you do this? Then they would make sure that everything is cool. You get counseling. You make sure everything was good. Sometimes, my pastors may not always. Some of my pastors that I've been with didn't always agree with what I was doing. They know this is what God has called them to be. But as long as he's in church on Sunday, as long as he's at his post every time those church doors open, or he calls me when there's a problem, or there's something on his heart, that's something I personally see in CCM that needs to be addressed. Now you're probably thinking, sounds like a good idea, Joe. You know, a lot of Christians can be helped by this. We can even stop this deconstruction nonsense that's been going on. Why is it not being enacted? Why isn't this being encouraged? One entity, the record industry. Let's have an honest conversation. As I mentioned earlier, secular music has their hand completely on Christian music. There is nothing you can do to get around that. This is why me, as a person who is a Christian and someone who is a music artist, as a Christian, have made a choice to go independent. Not just for creative reasons, but also for the reasons as I explained. I want to let people know that I want to live Christianity the way it's supposed to be lived, but also in a sense, my own rules. Christian music, especially even now, can outsell any secular music any day out of the week. And I believe, in a conviction of my whole heart, that we as a Christian community, if the Christian contemporary music scene broke away completely from the secular music, guess what? We'll still stand on our own. Matter of fact, we'll probably even be 10 times more profitable and better than secular music will ever be. Because we look at secular music, what are they producing? Junk. And people nowadays are longing for better music. That's why independent artistry is so longed for. You know, it's not about, it's about normal life. It's about relating to others in the truest sense of the form. That's why Oliver Anthony is popular, because he wrote a song that everyone else was thinking. To say all this, I mean, like they always say, I don't want to sound too cliche. Yes, pray for the Newsboys. Pray for Michael Tait. Even those who have deconstructed their faith and decided to go south with it. And if you're a Christian artist, it's not a discouragement. It's an encouragement to stay the path. But on the same token, if a record label comes up to you, tell them, hard pass. You have more opportunities to go viral on the internet and to sell your music that way than to use a record label. If you don't believe me, ask Tom Petty. That's just me though. But like I said, I'm talking about something that to me directly affects the heart. And if, like I said, if you're a Christian out there and you are into music but you're not sure about how to go about it, let the Lord guide you. And do it independently. He will take care of you. Well, like I said, that's my rant. If anything, please do me a favor. Like the video, share it to all your friends, and don't forget to subscribe. Now, since it's on a Sunday, I'm going to work on my own personal music. And like I said, I'm going to leave a description on the bottom of my music. Okay, so that, it's at Lionheart Music TV. It's still in its rawest form, and we're still coming out with the newer stuff. So just so if you can show us some love, check out our page on YouTube. Maybe eventually support us on our socials. I would deeply appreciate that. So have a good day.